It's Roger once again, talking about learn about the body's connective tissue. I agree 100%. Look at these patterns. The patterns, my friends, are what you have to use to identify things. Then we will use the chemistry of the blood. Notice the patterns of the dark and the light and the waves, and I'm going to show you something that will astound you. We all know what a heart looks like and how bland tissue can be. And if you've been around me long enough, you know that we know how elegant and gorgeous and exquisite tissues can become. So once again, Getty Images, we look at the pattern of connective tissues. Look at it very carefully. These are the blood supplies that supplies these tissues. We see it as all basically one sort of color, but watch this, just as we saw the heart as one type of color. Just as the heart took on its colors based on the regions within the tissue patterns that have different chemistry, different strength, different capabilities, different stretchability, they are all serviced by blood the same way the other ones were. This is in China. They're rainbow mountains, and they are everywhere. People don't pay attention to them. As I've been saying right along, these are the colors of the transition metals, and these transition metals are in you. There's no question. You can see it in the mud fossils. There's no serious question about it. They think all these things are just accidentally bouncing around in you because, for no reason, just trace elements. That don't mean much. Well, every one of them means something, and through the visual look of these things, you can tell how important the chemistry is in the body. It's completely separate and completely dependent upon certain metals and minerals. Simple as that. If you don't have them, you're going to be sick. Alright, so now you have an idea of how serious this is. Let's get back to connective tissues. Now, you see this right here? That's 500 microns. That's 10 times the width of a hair. Now, if you could see here, and you may not be able to, but there's extreme separation of fibers here. Now, these are tendinous materials. They don't normally stretch much at all. They only stretch about 2 or 3%. And they will snap. And this is the wavy pattern of them when they are not under stress. They turn into this wavy pattern. And that wavy pattern you will see at the top of all of these, like Devil's Tower, that is the unstressed tendon. This is the stressed tendon. Now, these are different types of connective tissues and supporting tissues. And this is the interstitium layer with all these little black balls in it. This is ball clay, they call this, where it's balls in them. And they're all over Earth. They're everywhere. And in us, they're microscopic, but in the rest of the Earth, they're gigantic. Because everything's gigantic. I just showed you. You see this? These are the ball clays that are in the skin layers. And that is what allows your skin to flex this way and come back when you're young. Mine doesn't do it so good anymore. But that's what's in your interstitium. Now, look at these patterns and how these wavy little things are. Now, this, I believe, is like where it stores fats and so forth, and the blood is got tremendous access to this area. It's like that cellulite or whatever they call it. Now, this is a more tendinous materials. Now, let's go see what they look like in asbestos, because asbestos is tendinous material. So many things are tendinous. All right, this is, again, it's about connective tissues, and they are the tendons and the straps and the things that do all the pulling, and there's different types. There's loose, dense, and specialized, they call it. And they coat organs, and they hold them in place, and they cover everything. They cover all your joints, and they hold bones together and link things, or tendons and ligaments, and they call it interstitium now. Just a year ago they announced that there's interstitium, which covers all the organs and coats everything in your body, which I have been reporting on this for years. I wrote a paper 3, 4, 5 years ago called fascia facilitated fossilization, which this is fascia. This is all fascia stuff. And it surrounds all of your, every single cell in your body is surrounded by fascia, believe it or not. Every single tendon, every single fiber, every single thing in your body has to move along everything else and keep it separated. So there's a filament, a membrane usually, around every single thing that's in your body. Every single little bit has to be away from everything else. And when it's not, you have real problems. And I think that's a lot of the source of illnesses, is that the connective tissues and sliding back and forth and all these things, they wear holes in the membranes, and then the tissues start getting attacked because they're supposed to be separated with mucous membranes, and any kind of extra chemistry that's in your body creates abrasion. And I'm going to show you what, well, anyway, we'll go from here. But these are connective tissues, collagenous, elastic, reticular, and we see these, you can see these in mud fossils. If you look carefully, they're all over the place. They change a little bit. Then there's specialized connective tissues where your lungs come up and down, and and all these little balls in your lungs and so forth. They are not all one color like that. They are all different little colors. They're in the metals. Now, I don't know what they're showing here exactly, but I can tell you one thing. Inside lungs, where they have the air coming through them and swelling up and going down, swelling up and going down, inside of these pockets are filled with transition metals that are not the same in every pocket. They're different ones. What else we got here? Adipose tissue. That's your loose skin tissue is really fat and stores fat. Adipose tissues. It goes on. You should read this whole thing. But these are the kind of things we're seeing in mud fossils, because the mud fossils were absolutely gigantic, ginormous. And for some reason, the blood cells don't seem to have that same size. I'd like to look a little deeper into that, but I don't see the same size I don't see the blood cells being the same size as the creatures. In other words, they didn't have basketballs floating around through them, which you would expect. Because I'm going to show you an artery that blew out some blood. And these are the places we should be looking at very carefully, see what this thing is. I'm going to show you an artery that blew out some blood. Watch this. All right, this is the pattern of muscle. That is an arterial blowout. Now, this is the blood that's running out of there. Now, that is not a puppy little thing. Let me show you where that is. There's two guys standing down there looking at it. All right. You see the patterns of the muscle? It's not hard to see. This is the blood running out. Now, what is the size of those blood cells? I think it's powdery blood. They call it ochre. And they used to carve it and do all kinds of things with that. It's just a putty. It's like putty. And when they originally went into these cavities and caves to make their caves, they just dug it out with their fingernails. Because that isn't even big. That isn't even big. It's just the world we live in that just has not been understood. And I'm not saying that everybody should have understood. They should look at it and say, well, how'd that happen? Nobody would expect, to see these things and think they are what they are, unless you started from the fact that where I started from. There's nowhere else to go. Once you say, one day I came to my wife, I said, every rock I'm testing was alive. Every single thing was alive. She said, oh, you're insane. She still says that. But, it's true. You can't pick up a rock that had not been consuming oxygen at one point in time. Every single one. I'm not kidding you. Now, we are living on gigantic dead things, yes. But there was all kinds of little dead things too. And a lot of it turned into little tiny particles, which is the dirt and the dust and the clay and the sand and all that stuff. That is eroded creatures. That didn't just come from nowhere. So it's time to start coming back to reality, the bloody truth. Just down in Cusco, blood just collects there. They had carved a drain off to that, so they knew that was some kind of sacred blood long ago. But I'm going to show you one that'll really get you. Those are actually blood vessels inside of, I believe it's either muscle or tendinous material. You see these? These are arteries. Those aren't just there for no reason. Water pours from these rocks where there are natural occurring plumbing, which is arteries, because they're the red-blooded parts, and they drain out. And this is probably the black area, and that's probably the black area over here. You see it's reddish more. Let me show you another one that actually has blood coming out of it. It's what you call blood out of a rock. This, I believe, was a heart, and because when you see the black, and then you see the yellow, and then you see the red, and then you see these cavities, you can even see this smoothish texture of the surface which is cardiac muscle. So I'm pretty sure that's a heart. I don't even know where it came from. Somebody sent me a Rock Glen Brito. I'm not bloody Rock Glen Brito. Maybe that was the person who sent it to me. I just don't remember all this stuff. So, more or less meandering back to asbestos, because it's been in the news recently, and you see how fibrous that stuff is? And look at this carefully. You can see this is the same. These are tendinous. See this over here? Tendinous, 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 tendinous. It's all tendinous. It's all from tendons. And it depends on the conditions that it was in. It's called solvomorphism. What does that mean? Solvents. What does that mean? Things that are in the water and the solutions that drain down through these creatures' bodies, and they are solvents. That means they have reactions to the things that were in the body. They attach to them, they break them down, they change them, they add color to them, they make them brittle, they make them soft, whatever. And I'm writing a book now that is trying to make all this understandable, because it's not to the average person. They're just clueless. They have no idea that this was ever even possible, and now all of a sudden geology really is not applicable at all anymore whatsoever. So it's got to be handled, and I'm just going to write a book and handle it. That's all. I'm pretty much on the way done with it. Anyway, this stuff here is fibers. It's fibers. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like in living things. This is, very, very high resolution electron microscope of the fibers that I showed you in the living tissue ones. Look at how extremely dense these are with fibers. Now, these are arrows pointing out to things where there's damage and where there's minerals that are causing structural or abrasive problems, and there's structural problems, and there's tangling of the fascia fibers, and all these kind of different conditions that happen to them. And a lot of this is based on things that can't get picked up or delivered to the areas where they're needed. As far as I'm concerned, now listen to this. Here's the key. If you look at this, oh, that's nice bundle of this. Well, let me tell you something. Every single tiny fiber, the tiniest fiber, has to be separated from every other single tiny fiber, and they cannot touch. They cannot touch. They're slipping forth, back, all day long. You're bending, you're twisting, you're doing this. If you can't do that, and it's stuck, it's going to snap. And this is what's happening here. They're snapping, they're scrubbing, there's abrasives in there that are ripping through these membranes. And that's all the chemistry in your body that has to deal with this. Again, database. We need a database. What is in your body? Before we go any further with health, I mean, it's just absolutely mandatory. All right, so what is asbestos? Refers to 6 unique minerals: crystallite, amazite, chrysotillite, anthracite, tremolite, and istinolite. I mean, it's all tendons. Under different conditions, belonging to the serpentine and amphibole families, whatever those are. Serpentine means little wavy things. That's the tendons de-stressed, just like this. You see that? Isn't it amazing? That's at the top of an abrupt transition. These are all completely separated when you're in life and in death. Those would not have been in this form in life. They would have been stretched, and that gives you the spring. And these are built-in springs. You think about that. If you stretch that out, boing, it comes back. This is what happened when you cut the top. Same thing happened to Devil's Tower. I'm going to show you that in a minute. Now, this is from Dreamtime. And you can see they're separated. They're in a spring formation. That is the nature of the abrupt transition. These are the tendon fibrils. You see that? The fibrils, the fiber bundles. I showed you how many thousands and zillions of fibers, because they come down to these tiny fibrils, but they come in these hex tubes until they could break down up to almost nothing. Now, same thing with Devil's Tower. Again, let's go see it. All right, there's Devil's Tower. There's the wrinkle zone at the top. There's the red blood running down. That's more red blood. Those are kaolin clays. These are the fibers. They're cracking and breaking. They're made out of calcium carbonate, CaCO3, with all kinds of little mineral inclusions because they have fibers built in them, collagens, keratins. They're fibrous materials that give structural support to this stuff. Tendons break off flat as a pancake. That's why these things, I couldn't, because somebody cut that off with a saw or something. No, that is what's called an abrupt transition. If you look it up and find out, do a little work in biology, anatomy, and chemistry and all that, you'll see. Totally natural. And you can see this here. That is the structure of the way the body builds itself in layers. And it'll layer itself right in. And then they weave itself right in. It's absolutely fascinating what the body is capable of. Not only that, my brain is thought about this brain, so your brain is going to have to roll with my brain, even though I roll out of sequence into I do a circuitous exploration of science, because I just thought about the layers of your body. There's, you're not built in layers. Yes, you are. You're built in little tiny layers, even your brain. This is a brain. This is a brain. Somebody said to me, again, I don't know who it was. I did the autopsy with her, and I can't remember who it was, but this is a membrane, a sinus membrane, that is, there's the esophagus, there's a piece of the tongue, that is a brain. When she cleaned it out, here it is right here. This is the nasal cavities. Those are the sinus cavities. There's your esophagus, and this is the layering of the brain. You can't miss that. A 2-year-old can see that. Well, what's that all about? Why is it the brain layered like that? But your whole body is. You're built like a layer cake. I'm telling you, it's like you painted you and put another coat and another coat and another coat. It's just absolutely amazing. And the coats are absolutely tiny thin. As you saw in those tendons, that is the way your body is. You have so much tiny things that your mind can never be able to comprehend the intricacy that the human body is, or any creature. I mean, it's just absolutely, every day it just gets deeper and deeper in my mind how seriously unbelievable life is. And to think this is just accidental is just, oh my God, what a weak-minded theory evolution is. Anyway, I mean, it just says, well, here it is, it happened. You know, but that's okay. I could say, yes, here it is, it happened. I can't explain it either. But I'm not just throwing God out the window saying, I can't be a God in here. It just as very, very, very well could be a God, because it's always been talked about. And I think I have the evidence to prove that the things that were written are factual. Starting with the dragon in Morocco. And if you can't get your head around that, I have no respect for your head. You were missing a bunch of these layers, my friend, if you can't get there. And you say, well, where do I have to get to be where you are, Roger? Well, here's what you have to get to be where I am. You have to get to be able to see what's in your eyes and be able to see a dragon that happens to be right in your eyes. That's the dragon. He is virtually Morocco. And he is enormous, or she, I'm not sure the gender. I know it's an avian excrementary system. It has a cloaca. I have done an enormous amount of work on this, and I have done the autopsy. This is the effluent flowing from the dead, decaying dragon, and that is the dead, decaying dragon's throat. And the dead, decaying dragon has these platelets that run down where it can actually twist and still be armored. The neck runs for an enormous distance, and it was assaulted with what was written to be a great and mighty sword. And that great and mighty sword struck that great and mighty dragon right there. And that great and mighty dragon bled out through that orifice all over the desert. And this is the line of demarcation for the effluent. Talk to any autopsy guy or a coroner. They will have seen this if they've been around. This dragon runs from here almost to the Mediterranean. And you say, well, how can you prove that? I said, well, because he's attached to his tail over here, sir. And there it is right there. So, if you can't start to think about this and think about what might have happened in the past and what might have been written and about dragons and giant fishes, like this giant fish that was being attacked by that giant dragon in this giant desert, and spit something out at him, which I know is exactly identical to snake toxin, the most venomous snake toxins, and it combusted when it hit his fin, way down here. It combusted on his fin and ate into his vital flesh, which is right here. Quite obvious vital attacked. Destroyed, devastated. Very nice. Pink. Right, and where did that stuff originate from that dragon's throat? Well, guess what? I found the injectors. Right, and where are the injectors? They're right here in his throat. What do they look like? They look just like this. There's red ones at the top, squirting in here, and they're all injectors running across the top, the red ones. They mix with the green ones down here at the bottom and create a valley of death. And that valley of death pours from the mouth of the dragon. Alright, it's a new universe, my friends. You're all 3 years old again. Time to wake up, shake off all this stuff. Clean your eyes out. Start over again. Don't hide. Don't hide. It's real. Alright, I'm just going to let you know, next time we're going to do one on shungite, and I'm going to relate it to what it is in the body and how it forms, and my theory on it. I still have not formed a solid theory on that, but it seems to be the hot topic, so we're going to go into shungite.